This is a follow-up to part 1 where I talk about my placement and what I did for work. In part 2, I'll talk about the living conditions, the transportation, and my overall thoughts on the JET program and whether it's worth it or not. So now I'll talk about what it was like actually living here. So like pretty much all JETs, I had my own apartment provided for me by the city. It was about like a 15-minute bike ride from the office, and I was expected to either walk or bike to the office every day. There was no public transportation. I was allowed to have a car if I wanted to, and I did end up getting one, but I was not allowed to drive to work. I think it's because of like insurance. Like if I were to have an accident while driving to work, I would not be covered for that by like workers' insurance. I guess they just didn't enroll me in that because I lived so close to the office anyways. So yeah, I just bike to work every single day. Being able to bike to work is quite a nice experience, I think. Except when the weather is bad. And I guess the other downside was like, I can't wake up early. I've always been terrible at waking up early in the mornings, but I had to because I had a job now. And I also have like a lot of hair, so like I would often wake up, not have enough time to like properly set my hair, and then I would bike to work as fast as I could and have the wind just like blowing my hair all over the place. And I would show up at work with like the worst like bed and wind hair of my life. And I think my supervisor got mad at me a couple of times for just looking like a mess, so whoops. And the apartment itself was pretty spacious. It was a 2DK room, which means it just basically has 2 bedrooms and like a small dining and kitchen area combined into one space. For a Japanese apartment, it was a lot more spacious than I expected and a bit more than I needed. The best part was that it was very cheap. So the city was heavily subsidizing the cost of the apartment, so I actually only had to pay 10,000 yen a month for rent. And it was the same for all other JETs in my city, ALTs and CIRs alike. So I think we had it pretty good. Depending on where you're placed, it could be even cheaper than that, or it might be more expensive than that. You really can't predict it. I would say just, if you're going on JET, expect to pay a normal amount of rent. But if you get a nice subsidy, just treat it as a bonus. The thing I didn't like about the apartment though was that it was pretty old and not very well built. So in the winters, it got freakishly, stupidly, very uncomfortably cold. And like there were many times like I would wake up in the morning and I could see my own breath because it was so cold in the apartment. It was actually colder indoors than it was outdoors. I guess because of the lack of sunlight, maybe the apartment just like trapping cold air or something. Like it felt like I was living in a cardboard box. And I also didn't really understand how to use like the heating properly at the time. Eventually I figured out that if I just closed all the doors, shut myself into one room, kept the heat turned on, and also used an electric carpet and like some floor insulation, it would be a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, coming from the US where like central heating is a thing, I found winters to be a little bit uncomfortable in this apartment. I did also end up leasing a car. There was a little family-run car company that was very friendly to foreigners and actually had a good reputation among JETs in this area. So I just signed a contract to borrow a very basic, small, like mini car. Like nothing fancy at all, but it was pretty cheap. I think it was 15,000 yen per month. And then a little bit extra for insurance. And with that, yeah, I was free to drive wherever I wanted. I didn't actually need a car. Izumo it's considered inaka, but it's not so rural that you need a car to get anywhere. You certainly can get around with just a bicycle or with buses and trains that come kind of infrequently. But I just found that having a car would kind of expand my options to explore more, go to certain like events or activities in places that weren't accessible by public transportation. Pretty much all the ALTs in my city ended up getting cars because most of them worked in like different schools located all around the city. For the CIRs though, I think I was the only one who had a car. Most of the others who worked in the Izumo City Hall just biked or took the train to work. So yeah, it's a personal choice. So lastly, I'll talk about like the good and the bad of being CIR on JET. And I'll just start by saying that I'm very happy that I did JET. I really think that being a CIR was the best choice I could have made to start my career in Japan. They do kind of like ease you into the process of working in a Japanese environment. They're pretty forgiving if your Japanese isn't perfect or if you make mistakes. And you have responsibilities, of course, but not a ton. There were no like super high stakes projects or you could possibly cause financial ruin or really inconvenience a lot of people if you mess something up. So yeah, it was a good place to just start learning without a ton of pressure. And I got to meet a lot of different people, experience a lot of different things. For work itself, I did translation, interpreting, public speaking, a bit of event planning, even did a couple business trips to the US. And I got to just meet and interact with a ton of different people around the city from all different age ranges, anywhere from, 2-year-old kids all the way up to like senior citizens. It was a job that required me to be a bit social and curious. I think I'm a naturally curious person, so that was good. So I'm not the most social person, but I do what I can. And overall, yeah, there was a lot to learn. And after my 3 years of JET, I found surprisingly that I had a lot to put on my resume and a lot to talk about at job interviews when I was looking for my next job. So being a CIR does give you a pretty decent skill set to talk about. Another thing I forgot to mention is that they were pretty generous with vacation days too. I think in Japan, workplaces are only legally required to give you 10 paid vacation days per year, which is freaking terrible. But in my placement, I think we had 20, which is very generous for Japanese standards. And what was even more rare was that if I were to get sick, and I did get sick a couple times, I was allowed to take a couple days of sick leave rather than having to burn through my paid vacation. I think a lot of people didn't know about this, but I think all CIRs are entitled to that because I remember my bosses like contacting Claire, like the organization in charge of the JET program, and asking them how to handle my days off when I was sick. And it turns out, yeah, they basically became free days off. So that was very nice. As for the cons, the first one is a bit expected, but like the work culture is very rigid. Like I said earlier that it was surprisingly friendly and casual than I expected. That is true, but at the same time, it is still a Japanese office environment where like you have to dress formally, wear a tie outside of the summer months. I really hate dressing formally, so this was annoying to me. They were very strict about time. So our work day actually is from 9:15 to I think 5:15. We were almost always able to leave right on time at 5:15. However, we were expected to be in the office and ready to work by like 9. If we arrived at 9:15, the technical start time, we were considered late, and people would not be happy about it. And I was late several times because I still suck at waking up. And when that happened, I would have to go to like the head of the department that is above our department, basically our boss's boss, who I would otherwise never interact with. And then I would have to like formally bow and apologize, which is Japanese office things. Also, lunch break was strictly from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. They were not really flexible with this. So at 12 p.m. every day, I would go to get my lunch. It would be super crowded because everyone else was getting lunch at the same time, and I would have to be sure to be back by 1 p.m. or else people would get mad at me again. And the other thing was that, like any other job, there were times when things got busy and there were times when there was not much to do. But when there was nothing to do, like there was really nothing to do. Like I did have days where I just went to the office and did nothing but pretend to look busy the entire day. Looking back, I should have just tried to like find something or try to think of some new project to work on, but at the time I just didn't have any inspiration to do so. And I would say it started to get especially boring after the first year ended, because during the first year I was doing everything for the first time and I was learning a lot of stuff, which was great. But the second and the third years were basically just repeats of the first year, like almost exact repeats. Like we had the same schedule of events, we would go to the same like schools, see a lot of the same people, which was nice of course, but there was a point where I realized I just was not learning anything and not growing at all. For better or worse, I was in a very comfortable, complacent position where I knew what to expect, I knew I could do my job, but I wasn't being challenged enough. So by year 3, like I was really just mentally checked out. There are definitely CIRs who stay for 3 to 5 years and mostly enjoy the experience from start to finish. And it can be a very comfortable place to be too. But I guess I might be the type of person who just really wants novelty. So yeah, just doing the same thing for 3 years straight was not amazing for me personally. That doesn't mean it won't be good for you though. You know yourself better than I do, so just take that with a grain of salt. Overall, being a CIR on JET was a very good idea. I did go in not sure if I would enjoy it or not, but I would say it worked out for me. After I finished my CIR contract, I got a new job in Tokyo, so I moved there. And by this point, I've been in Japan for almost 11 years. I'm pretty comfortably settled down here. I have a family here, and I don't plan to go back to the US anytime soon. And JET was the first stepping stone that got me into the country and got me to where I am now. So I am happy that I did it. And I also want you to know that whether you're an ALT or a CIR, both offer you a lot of opportunities to learn. A lot of the ALTs I met ended up staying in Japan as well. Some of them got their teaching licenses and became full-time teachers, but many others went into non-teaching roles as well. Some went into like sales, a lot of them went into tech, some of them got into like university admin work, some of them became professors. So yeah, there's really a lot of possibilities if you look for them. And if you want to hear more about just the things I've done or learned during my decade in Japan, I hope you'll come back for more. Feel free to comment or DM me as well if you want to ask anything specific about JET. Yeah, that's all for now. See you next time.